Born on Alderaan along with his younger brother Kay, Ulic would be trained by Jedi Master Arcann on Arcania. A promising Jedi novitiate, Ulic grew in both power and skill, and was soon sent on a mission to the planet of Alderaan. From there, he would be involved in a string of events that involved the resurgence of the Sith. Unfortunately, a vile calamity befell Ulic and his allies when his master was assassinated. Ulic then went on to infiltrate the dark side cult of the Krath to find a way to destroy the dark side followers, but alas ended up becoming one of them. After joining forces with Exile Kun, who himself was once a Jedi hopeful and now the Dark Lord of the Sith, the two waged a war that was bloodier than anything the Republic had experienced since the Great Hyperspace War. Of course, such conflicts would create even more notable deaths, including the likes of the Supreme Republic Chancellor, Kun's old master Vodosios Boss, and Ulic's own brother, Kay. Distraught with grief, Nomi Sunrider, Ulic's previous lover, cut his connection to the Force. Ulic, now seeking redemption, would lead them to Kun, bringing the war to a swift end. In the following years, Ulic served in a self-imposed exile to gain some form of redemption and rekindle his connection to the Force. He was soon found by Nomi and Silvar, the latter looking for revenge for the death of her mate Credo, who defected to the Sith and died during the war. The two would engage in a fierce duel with Ulic holding back, but he would soon drop his guard in an attempt to calm Silvar, which worked. However, Ulic was slain by an unlikely individual and would then become one with the Force.
Jedi, surrender! You are nothing next to the might of War None.
Let's find out.
But Ulic wasn't the only Force wielder to change after murdering his brother. Arcann was born with his twin brother Thexin to the Zakulian knight Senya and Emperor Valkorion. Valkorion in secret being the Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Vitiate. Arcann and his brother would know little joy in their upbringing, as they would spend their life building themselves into instruments of war. He and his brother would go on to conquer both Republic and Imperial territory at the behest of their father. However, after enduring such trials over the conflict and feeling no acknowledgement, Arcann could not take it for much longer and lashed out. Intending to kill his father, he instead only murdered his beloved brother in a fit of rage. Some time down the line, the Outlander would show up to meet with Valkorion, and taking advantage of the meeting, used the Outlander to slay his father. He then blamed the Outlander for the Emperor's death and imprisoned him in Carbonite. Arcann would become the new Emperor and completely force both the Republic and the Sith Empire under his heel, with neither posing a threat to him. 5 years later, the Outlander would escape with the help of some old allies, and Arcann would make it his mission to hunt him down and even engage in duels a number of times. In their final battle, the Outlander would come out victorious, but would spare Arcann. He would be rescued by his mother and then taken to an unknown location to hopefully find redemption. Arcann's ultimate fate is unknown.
Scions have always worshipped at the false altar of fate. That is why I kill them. I am beyond prophecy. I forge my own destiny by making the hard choices.
Welcome to another matchup, Ulic Qel-Droma, the Dark Lord, versus Arcann, the Dark Prince. Both who fell to the inner darkness but now seek redemption. I'll be observing Ulic in his Sith incarnation by looking at how he's portrayed in the Tales of Jedi comic series as well as the audio dramas. While I'll be observing Arcann as he is in the Knights of the Fallen Empire expansion for Star Wars The Old Republic MMO, as well as any surrounding info. During the Great Sith War, Ulic was in the prime for a member of his species. This was further bolstered by his great command of the Force, making him capable of pulling off superhuman feats of speed, strength, and endurance. Ulic was able to move so fast that he could create afterimages of himself during a training session, and even able to keep up such levels of speed on the Darkside Nexus. His most impressive attributes of course were his strength and endurance. With his strength, he was able to throw Mandalorians one-handed and flex his way out of mental restraints, Following a deadly attack at the Battle of Chorus Major, Ulic was impaled by debris from the ship. The wound was then unable to heal properly due to the touch of the dark side that resulted from Sith sorcery. Also on the topic of his endurance, he was able to ward off the Sith poison that he was subjected to by Sitar Keto. The fact that his force abilities were dulled also adds to his profound level of fortitude. Like Ulic, Arcann appeared to be in his early 20s, placing him within a desirable human state. During his raids alongside his brother, he suffered the loss of his left arm and also had the left portion of his face severely damaged. This led to him receiving a cybernetic left arm and his scarred areas being covered up with a mask. His main physical attributes being similar to that of Ulic, a pronounced affinity for strength and endurance. He has been able to overpower other force wielders with apparent ease, such as when he pushed back the hero of Tython, an opposing Sith, on Korriban. As for his endurance and durability, Arcann did not disappoint, having a large pillar fall on him and walking away unscathed after falling thousands of feet. And of course, having his midriff slashed with a lightsaber, proceeding to stay conscious and then get buried by debris, and even then still had enough energy to repel Valen's charge.
Hey, that's pretty good.
An impressive display of resiliency and power that I'm sure you can agree with, especially when you take into consideration how powerful Valen is. Looking at both sides of the spectrum, both combatants bring very useful physical traits to the table. Ulic's strength is easily answered by Arcann's own, even with his cybernetic in my opinion. However, Arcann was still somewhat capable, even after sustaining a lightsaber strike to the abdomen, and being able to still function. Arcann should get the edge for physicality. As the apprentice to the most powerful Sith Lord of the time, Ulic was quite impressive in his own right. Even before his fall to the dark side, Ulic used his force powers in a supplementary manner as opposed to his primary form of attack. Where a force wielder might strike out at an adversary with a telekinetic push, Ulic would prefer to throw up a telekinetic barrier. Within his entry in the Knights of the Old Republic campaign guide, Ulic is noted as having resistance to force and energy attacks, dominating minds, and force grip. While he's credited with a number of other telekinetic and esoteric abilities like Force Slam and even Sever Force, he has not been witnessed exhibiting any of these abilities in active combat. While yes, Ulic has been shown mind-dominating adversaries as a novice and force-gripping soldiers as a Sith, but neither of these showings took place in a duel. Heck, he's never even been shown using any force powers in other force wielders. While I will not ignore that Ulic has had some displays of force power, these attacks only took place when he was under extreme duress and were not disciplined, coordinated attacks. While you can make the argument that he never brought his combative powers to bear during his time as a Jedi, was because he had to devote his force talents to repelling the oppressive Sith attacks. But during his tenure as a Dark Lord of the Sith, he never used it against any adversary in battle. For example, look at his fight he had with his brother. He could have simply dominated him with his immense Sith power, but he couldn't resist dueling him. Ulic's strength lied in prioritizing lightsaber skill for his attack, and utilizing his force powers to cover the areas he couldn't use a lightsaber to defend with. Whenever he came into conflict with a dark side based attack that was targeted at his person or psyche, he was able to use his force power to plow through any hindrances that came in his way. Such as was the case when Ulic was able to fight past the dark side aura of Warb Null and the Sith sorcery of King Armin. He has also been credited with the knowledge of drain resistance, having taught the technique to Anakin Skywalker many years later in order for the young Padawan to destroy the Dark Reaper. As the child of Valkorion and Senya, Arcann was no doubt born with an immense midichlorian count that he made extensive use of. Even as a child, Arcann as well as his twin brother Thexan and younger sister Valen were said to be too powerful for Senya when she attempted to take them with her. Unlike the Jedi or Sith, much of Arkann's and the Zakul Knight's approach to the Force was different according to Darth Maul and Satil Shan. This opened the door to unique and powerful Force attacks that proved a challenge to anyone who faced him in combat. When in fighting, Arcann heavily favored the use of telekinetic attacks, such as when he was able to consistently dominate the Outlander, who was in fact the hero of Tython, the most powerful Jedi at the time. He was even able to pull off feats against the Outlander, even when he was utilizing a lightsaber that enhanced his abilities and forced his adversary to their knees. His other most impressive showing was using it to push back Valen after he had suffered a lightsaber slash to the abdomen and was buried under debris. Arcann even makes great integration of his force abilities in his lightsaber sequences, maximizing his power to great effect. In terms of his defense, he was also incredibly powerful to the point that he was able to shield himself from a blast of force energy so potent that it incapacitated the hero of Tython. His defenses being noted as almost impenetrable from his training of the Scions and Knights, the former being the counterparts to Jedi Counselors and Sith Inquisitors. Arcann is also capable of such abilities like Force Jump, Force Concealment and Telepathy. His most unique and interesting ability that he showcased was his Force Lightning. This ability was far too unique to be like any other display of lightning, and I don't mean just the colour. Arcann has demonstrated its potency when he obliterated HK-55, where if the droid hadn't stepped in, might have meant the end for the Outlander. Aside from its destructive output, it seemed to have a pyrokinetic effect to it as well. He's further augmented this ability into creating force manifestations that it could use to attack enemies autonomously. Both are extremely powerful force wielders who like to employ their abilities in different ways. Ulic in a utilitarian manner and Arcann in a fundamental approach. Ulic is well suited to dealing with any mental and physical hindering attacks, but lacks anything that could pose a threat to another force wielder, especially one as powerful as Arcann. The Dark Prince, on the other hand, has an array of offensive abilities that will be a great threat to Ulic, not to mention is also more than suited to contend with Ulic's own defensive proficiency. Arcann gets the edge in force power. Ulic was one of the most skilled lightsaber practitioners of his time, focusing on skills that complemented his dueling prowess. He utilized a standard hilted lightsaber with the blue, yellow, green, red, with a standard lightsaber crystal. His main lightsaber form of choice was Form 5 Gem So, a strength-based discipline that focused on capitalizing on the practitioner's strength to overwhelm the opponent's defenses, while at the same time holding a staunch defense. The form was noted as being quite weak in terms of footwork. However, a highly skilled duelist could negate the weaknesses, as shown by his training sessions and his fight with the Sith acolyte, Warm Null. In his fights with the Juggernaut, even under the duress of a dark side aura, he was still able to use his speed and agility to work his way into the opponent's guard and end him swiftly. On another note, Ulic was also skilled in the use of simple bladed weapons, such as when he bested Mandalore the Indomitable with a Mandalorian axe. When Ulic came into contact with a duelist of equal skill, such as the case with Exar Kun, there wasn't much he could do other than to just stalemate his opponent until an opening presented itself, or until one or the other gave into fatigue. When on the defensive, it could even be argued that Ulic was just as, if not better, when in this dueling aspect. During his training of Vima Sunrider, he critiqued that she had left her guard open several times. He has been able to stonewall attacks from larger opponents, and even stalemate attacks from a profound duelist known for his strength behind the blade. Even when he had been cut off from the Force, he was able to meet Silvar blow for blow with his lightsaber. At this time, he was out of his physical prime and hesitant to fight her. Ulic was a well-rounded and effective duelist, one that was truly worthy of his reputation. After spending his life enduring grueling and rigorous training, Arcann was a master-level duelist by the events of the Knights of the Fallen Empire. He and his brother would train with Zakulian Knights very regularly as they grew older, honing their combative skills, the Knights being the equivalent to the average Jedi Guardians and Sith Warriors. Due to his aggressive and varied nature and the fight scenes we've witnessed him in, I think it would be safe to assume that his main discipline was Form 6. Form 6 Nine Man was also coined as Diplomat's form and was the discipline that drew from the other previous forms. While commonly a lax and widespread fighting style, employed by Jedi seeking to prioritize in other endeavors, Arcann took the form to its highest potential, favoring the use of power attacks to plow through his opponent's defenses, whether this be by way of his lightsaber blade, force powers, or through unarmed physical blows. While one could say that such a fighting method was crude and simplistic, one has to remember that Arcann had stalemated the most powerful Jedi of the time purely on dueling alone. As straightforward as his technique may look, you can still see that he held a great degree of technical sophistication through the duels he's been witnessed in. When comparing both their fighting techniques, both Arcann and Ulic were among the best of their time, each going toe-to-toe with the best of their era, but just who is more skilled from the two? In Ulic's corner, he has a well-coordinated offense as well as a nigh-impregnable defense, while Arcann brings more combative variety to the table. But as this round is solely judging their martial skill in combat, Arcann's integration of force power will not be counted on, leaving only his unarmed strikes and lightsaber blows to deal with Ulic. As I've gone over in this video, when Arcann isn't able to break through the defenses of a duelist of his caliber, he is quick to resort to his use of force attacks, and as we know, Ulic's fighting technique has an especially impressive defense that I believe Arcann cannot break through solely with his martial skill alone. Therefore, I shall give Ulic the edge in martial skill. Alright, all categories have been covered and it is now time to get into the verdict log. I'll also be giving the majority to the victor a 7 out of 10. Now, let the battle begin. Ulic strode into the throne room, seeking to find an adversary that was worth his skill. He had already made short work of the guards stationed at the door, his adrenaline still pumping, still hungry for more. Arcann rose from his throne, sensing the power of this new intruder. The dark side radiated off him in palpable waves. Arcann had faced many Sith before, but none as powerful as the one stood before him. He would need to be wary of this new foe. Both drew lightsabers at the same time and leapt into the air to clash blades, parrying and striking one another until they made their way down to the platform. Both holding a blade lock, neither giving the other any quarter. Arcann then broke off and attempted several strikes on Ulic, seeking to break through his guard. But Ulic showed no signs of any discomfort from the blows, simply stonewalling every attack that was made against him. Furious, he lashed out with a forced push. Ulic staggered back and taking the brunt of the forced blow head on. He advanced towards Arcann in an attempt to put the confrontation back on his terms. His strikes were savage yet controlled. He struck with precision and fury, intending to completely destroy his enemy. Ulic then made an overhead strike, hoping to split his enemy in half, or at least push his lightsaber blade against his face. Neither outcome took place. Rather, Arcann had sidestepped the blow and kneed him in his side. Arcann took this chance to cut him down, but Ulic rolled out of the way of the blow and got to his feet. With distance between them, Arcann began to build up his power to unleash his own form of special lightning. Ulic, sensing the build-up, began to bolster his own telekinetic defenses for the inevitable blow. The bolt surged from Arcann's fingertips, ripping through the throne room's air. Ulic's defenses were holding, but not for long. It was only a matter of time before Arcann's attack would penetrate his defenses and kill him. In a fit of rage, Ulic responded with a wave of darkside energy, causing Arcann to break off his attack. Reigniting their blades, both of the darkside warriors decided to carry on their fight as a pure duel. Lightsaber blade clashing with lightsaber blade, every emotion, every thought was spoken through that intense duel. Seeing an opening in his opponent's flank, Arcann attempts a kick that would hopefully double over his adversary. Unfortunately, it was a trap, and Arcann was greeted with a lightsaber blade plunged through his midriff. Arkann's one visible eye went wide with disbelief as he looked at Ulic, his blood-red eyes sneering at his arrogant foe. Did he think that he would fall for the same trick twice? As he was about to pull his blade free from his defeated opponent, his left arm was grasped by Ulic's right. Ulic then stared up in horror to look at the enemy he thought he had defeated. Arkann's face of disbelief turned into a mask of a sniggering demon. He placed both his hands on the sides of Ulic's head and let loose a deadly flow of force lightning. Ulic screamed in terror and pain as he was experiencing agony he had never felt before. His lightsaber deactivating and clanking to the ground, and soon followed by his lifeless corpse. A scorched stump was all that remained of where his head used to be. Arcann, gripping his abdomen, made his way back to his throne with fair difficulty. As he sat there, he looked upon Ulic's remains, and then out into space. Thus, I proclaim Arcann the victor in this matchup. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please like the video, comment your thoughts, and share the video if you want to help out. Have a great day, and may the Force be with you.